I'm Nate Lind, and I help people interested in buying or selling online businesses get the transaction done without the deal falling apart. If you're looking to buy or sell online businesses, then be sure to keep tuning in for more videos like this one. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications about new videos and interviews. And introduce yourself in the comments. Are you a buyer or a seller? Enjoy the interview. Hi, everybody. Nate Lind here. I have an interview with a very experienced Amazon entrepreneur. He successfully sold his business with Website Closers, brokerage that I work with as well. John Elder, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into selling things online, and then we'll kind of walk through the process of you selling your business. We'd love to pick up some best practices and some learning lessons that you experienced going through the process of selling a seven-figure business.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, Nate, for having me on. My story is kind of unique in the sense of I had a pretty successful career in the construction management industry. So I went to University of Washington, graduated, with a degree in construction management and started working on really high profile projects. One notable one was the San Diego Airport project. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, managing entire teams of people. And so there was always an entrepreneurial spirit in me, for years. In college, I started a moving company to pay for tuition. And so there's always kind of like a sense of, I want to build something, for myself. So it didn't really hit me to start something legitimate. And when I say legitimate, I mean like, an actual business with employees and, financial statements. And that didn't start until probably, at least, 3 years, after post-college. And I realized that, I was going to be, slow increasing my salary, doing the 5% increase every year. I started realizing I have two options. I can build a side gig business, or I can, change my job to a different company and then, get the salary bump that way. But
sounds like you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, I never read that. No.
That's where I heard the same thing too. It's like, okay, well, I've got this career making 3 to 5% increases a year, or I can do my own thing. So yeah. I regress.
Exactly. And that was inspiration. And, people ask me, why did you, go down this road? And for me, the thing I value most is spending time with family and be able to, kind of decide how much time I want to spend with family, or how much time I want to go travel, or how much I want to work. And so to do that, you really have to, be an entrepreneur and, kind of design your lifestyle a little bit. And to do that, you have to have a business. So I just got researching, honestly, just, looking on Google, looking at different business ideas. And so the Amazon FBA business came up, and that captured my attention because it was so virtual. Once I found out, oh my gosh, most of Amazon's full of third-party sellers, I was blown away because I always assumed it was just Amazon. And so when I found that out, I went down, a rabbit trail, and started, reading and researching and realized this is a real opportunity. So once I, gained some confidence, I jumped in with $5,000 in cash and started my business with launching a product in the golfing industry. And, I talk to people all the time about this, and just focusing on products that you have a general interest in really, really helps. There's inevitable, obstacles down the road when you're running an Amazon business that can be really hard to get through. There's going to be sometimes there's going to be financial pain. And so you really have to be vested into your product. And so for me, that's something I really bought into from day one. And so I launched with a golf product, soon became the #1 seller for that. And then launched, 7 variations of that product. And so that was a very successful initial product launch. And it was a really cheap product. I'm sourcing it for $1 and ended up working with the same supplier that provides products for the PGA Tour. So I realized how small the world is at that time. And, that started a sequence of events of just replicating my process of, the research I did. And when I say research, I typically did a lot of product research for competitors, and then used a lot of Jungle Scout data, and just, some of it's gut, some of it's I feel there's a need in this niche, and just pursuing it that way. And from day one, this is something that's really important for the listeners and the viewers is, I had a vision board. So on my vision board, I had a specific number for an exit someday. And so, I always had that come in the forefront of my mind since starting the business. And why that's important is that it helped me, make decisions for my business with that goal in mind. And so I always wanted to keep everything really clean with my bookkeeping. I wanted to keep everything really clean with tax returns. I ran everything through one LLC, had one selling account, and really focused on branding in my business, and just really just thinking about, creating an experience for the customer, for them to come back and buy again in the future, and also to tell their friends. And so, that was successful, and I continued to grow and launch, new products into new product categories, and some failed, obviously, that's just part of the Amazon world. And started really thinking about, an exit in this was 2018. Actually spoke with Website Closers and a couple other brokers, decided to go with Website Closers, and, got a valuation from them, and was really, really, really close to my exit number, and then listed the business, and it ended up selling to a private buyer. So
why did you pick us over the competition?
From the interviews that I did, there was a sense of, there was an aggressiveness, fighting for me as a client, selling my business. And also just, there's a brand presence for Website Closers in the industry. People talk, about Website Closers and, how great of a job they do when they're selling and buying businesses for people. So that was really attractive, just knowing that I was going with, it wasn't a new kid to the show. It was an established entity. And that's, that kind of goes into, how I run Amazon businesses. I go with people who, are experts in their industry, down to, photos for a listing. I'm not going to hire a random person on Fiverr, and I'm going to go with someone who, it's going to be a little bit of money, but I'm going to have the best pictures in my product category. And
Yep.
So that's kind of how I run. And so that was really attractive.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We've actually established our branding with that, the Spartan warrior, basically.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
That's us fighting for our sellers, as sell side representatives. The really the only complaints we get is, buyers sometimes feel like we're pricing our clients' businesses too high. But that's a good thing for our sellers, and it's just the market. The market speaks. If there's someone who's going to pay, top dollar, that's what the business is worth. It's just, simple supply and demand.
Yeah, and that was true. I mean, when I listed, I definitely shot for the moon, but the number came in right around my goal number that I had from day one for the exit. So for me, it was how it ended up. It was just a really good situation.
That's awesome. Now, before this, we were talking about some highlights you had from the journey. I'm going to rattle some of these off, and then I'd love your commentary. You sold for a 4.5 multiple. You were a top 3,000 Amazon seller. You did over 10 million in sales between 5 brands in under 5 years. You also started selling on Amazon in late 2014.
Yeah.
And had over 100 SKUs in the catalog. Tell us a little bit more about, some highlights from the journey and what went on for you through the sales process after we engaged together between broker and client. What was the experience like for you? What all happened through that, and any, words of wisdoms you'd have for other sellers that are going through this? There's so little information out there, about, what the process is like. It's kind of scary, I think, for some people. It doesn't really need to be. It's especially when you've got, trusted advisors on your side that can guide you through it, like we've done with thousands of others.
Yeah, definitely. I can speak to that. There was something that was kind of interesting, and I think that it's actually common sense, is to run your business like you would anyways. if you're in the middle of an exit. And so that was, kind of hard, right? Because you are having to run your business and grow and continue to grow and show the buyer that you haven't stopped traction. So there's an element of restraint there that's you just have to get over as, as a seller of your business, that the growth you're doing is sealing the deal. And then you're also giving up some of that growth in terms of the profits. Because once you, sign that agreement, then you have to go into due diligence and go into the, multi-month phase. For me, it took quite a few months to get through all the paperwork, but, continuing to grow and continuing to launch products, it's a little emotional. It's like, man, I, have these great ideas and I'm launching, but that's just, part of, the business world. A buyer can pull out of a deal, if they feel like your revenues are crashing, and they see everything anyways. That's the other thing is, don't try to hide information, be transparent. And this is my net profit for this product. Here, all the tax returns, proper bookkeeping, keeping everything clean, is really important, because if a buyer kind of sniffs out some impropriety, they're going to find it, and they're going to, either pull out of the deal, or they're going to give you a lower multiple. And so the goal is the highest multiple possible. And that was, from my experience, that was a huge part too, is just, having a downline of new product ideas that are ready, that I'm currently launching, and then also having a pretty healthy backlog of products for the buyer. And so that was attractive for my exit. I tell that to everyone I talk to, have product ideas ready to rock and roll for the buyer, because the buyer doesn't want to have to, go through a learning phase on top of coming up with product ideas, because a lot of these people have no Amazon experience. And so they don't want to jump in, have the stress of just simply running the business, and then come up with ideas. So buyers are wanting, give them a year and a half of cushion in terms of product ideas. So that, that could be, 3 to a dozen product ideas, And so I handed over, sketches and designs and everything really, during the exit. And so they got all the intellectual property for those things. And they have launched some of those product ideas, and they're actually successful. So, that's the best case situation. My exit, it wasn't one where the buyer flopped. Proper training was done, and actually still, doing ongoing training for the buyer, and just, focusing on them being successful, and the buyer understanding it's going to take some work and there's going to be a learning curve.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've got two deals that have stalled out because the entrepreneur, the seller, took their foot off the gas, and we had to stop. We basically had to put the listing on hold. It's like a house. It's all of a sudden you have to take it off the market. They have to get the sales going again, and then we have to relist it later, because buyers just aren't going to tolerate a business that its sales decline in the middle of due diligence. They, in some cases there's some explanations for it. If there's seasonality to it, that's understood.
Right.
But if you've got year over year significant decrease, it's a stopper. And then
it's also an issue for the financing side too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many dang reports and financial statements and all sorts of things the bank just kept asking for, and they wanted more and more updates for inventory and sales figures and all this stuff. And, I can't even imagine, a bank getting information, they're going to be giving, multi-million-dollar funds to a buyer of a business. And then now they're seeing statements showing that the sales have gone down. That's just crazy, so yeah. It's really important. And, it felt like a little bit of, you're kind of grinding for somebody else, but you just have to keep your focus on the fact that you're exiting for a very significant number. So
was your deal, did the buyer use SBA bank financing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, that's such a really unique opportunity for people to be able to put down, 10 or 15%, and then get financed for the rest of it. But yes, when any bank is involved, the SBA is financing essentially the cash flow and the goodwill of the business because there's no collateral, there's no real estate. So
Yeah.
the fact that any banks are financing deals in the seven figures is amazing. I think is a great equalizer and great opportunity. And right now, the buyer market for that is huge. There's so many buyers interested in that, but the process does take time, and it's the only way for them to get that. I'll reiterate for those of you that have watched some of my other videos, you have to have good financials and you have to have those tax returns that show a profit. John mentioned those earlier, and kind of like a bullet line, he just said, he did this, this, and this. Man, so many sellers just aren't positioned. They don't have their financials in order. They didn't get their taxes done, or they're newer businesses. And, that will limit that buyer pool. Any other feedback you have about going through the sales process with the bank being involved?
Just to be patient. So I'll talk a little bit about my story. Gosh, I was 2 months in to my exit, and then the bank for the deal for the SBA side pulled out and emailed everyone and said we're out of the deal, and never gave us a reason. So that was really shocking because my business was extremely strong, and I had forecasted over 100% growth for the next year. Did over 100% year over year growth, and so everything down to my tax returns were clean and pristine. And to this day, I have no idea why they pulled out. Thankfully, there was a second bank that was, I felt like, just more intelligent or more e-commerce focused, and the process was very smooth, and ended up closing the deal with that second bank. But just to be patient, there's going to be roadblocks and there's going to be bumps in the road, but just to provide information whenever, 24 hours, within 24 hours, if there's a question from the broker or a question from a bank or the buyer, just to be really, really fast, because every day that you delay is going to delay the exit. So that's generally some advice I'd give to other people.
Something that you're doing now, it's kind of a little foreshadow. I think I'd like for people to understand kind of where you've segued now too, because when you have an exit like that, oftentimes people are wondering, like, I had this conversation today, is what am I going to do with my time? And, something that's really helpful. And you talked about having a thorough transition plan and having, a way to be able to successfully enable the buyer to be able to have ongoing sales and growth and launching products and that sort of stuff. And often the seller that's going through this process, sometimes they're burnt out. They just don't they don't want to, they're selling the business because they're tired of it, or they don't want to be involved in it anymore. John, I understand now you're doing some consulting services for people that are selling on Amazon. Tell us a little bit about that. And for those of you that are listening, this is important because if you're a seller, you may want your buyer to work with John. And if you're a buyer and you don't know how to do Amazon quite as well as someone who's had a really successful track record like John, or the seller that you're getting ready to buy this thing from, it's really good to have somebody in that co-captain seat with you. So John, tell us a little bit about, did you know that you would start doing this when you sold your business, and like, how did kind of that all unfold?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think my light bulb moment was when I actually traveled to the state of the buyer of my business, and spent some time with them, just working one-on-one, and, going through all the mechanics of Amazon. I mean, really teaching them from scratch. And so I kind of had a light bulb moment of, maybe there's, a market for this, of someone who has done it all, everything down to hijackers and random, listing suspensions. So I started kind of thinking about that, and I ended up taking a sabbatical, close to 6 months, and just, enjoying some time off, because it was pretty brutal, selling a business while growing a business, and at that level that I was at, with employees and everything, it definitely takes a toll. So I took some time off, and then during the sabbatical, I just started really thinking about consulting and what that would look like. And I didn't want to go down the road of kind of like the stereotypical guru, doing, courses that cost $5,000 and, producing videos with Lamborghinis. And honestly, to do all those things is actually really easy. A lot of people don't realize that those guys, it's really easy to fake all that stuff and rent a Lamborghini and basically lie about your experience in Amazon. So with me, um, uh, my idea was to, present an authentic, honest um, consultancy. And so my mission is to help other sellers just go through those hard challenges with their business and help optimize them and get them to a point where they're just, growing their business or helping them exit themselves. Um, so I definitely wanted to kind of stay away from that, and everything related to my business is kind of built that way. I don't have like any like weird long-term contracts. It's really an exchange of time. And so the name of the business is called, Black Label Advisor. So I actually talked to my wife about this, coming up with ideas, because everything down to, the product brands that I did in those 5 years, there was always a story or a mission statement involved in the name. And so for Black Label, I personally love whiskey. And so Black Label is a common thing. People put that on bottles. It's, small batch production. And so that was kind of a play on words, the labels for private label. So Black Label is just kind of presenting the image of one-on-one VIP consulting. And so some agencies, they grow to a large level where they have employees who are now advising those people. And those employees have zero Amazon experience. And that's not really where I'm headed. And so for me, it's, myself consulting one-on-one with people. And so the other part of it too is just, just deriving joy from something. So just helping people get through those hard things and not repeating some of the mistakes I made. And I was actually talking with a client recently, and I'm just brutally honest. And I'm like, yeah, you're talking to a consultant who almost went bankrupt, And then I talk about, those cash flow issues that I ran into and how I overcame those things. And so I go through those things with my clients, helping them to not repeat some of those mistakes. Because I think if you're educated, there's no reason for you to repeat, to go through those horrible, horrible situations. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's cool to meet a kindred spirit. I feel the same way about being a business broker now. I was an e-commerce entrepreneur for close to a decade, sold 9 figures of health and beauty products off Amazon. And, I really found my stride and love and interest and passion was around doing the advisory side. And I was a natural matchmaker, doing conferences and trade shows and a mastermind. And the brokering side of things just kind of came as a natural evolution, and it's so cool to be a part of other people's exits. And having had my own successful exit, and also having bankrupted companies, I've had tremendous failures too, and being able to share and express, okay, do this, don't do that. I know this one cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's cool, because from that experience, I think those like us can be really effective guides through the process.
100%. People have asked me, what would you do, if you could go back to day one and change something, what would that be? And so for me, it's if I started all over again, I would focus on branding from day one. And because so much has changed on Amazon, everything, all the tools for an enhanced brand content and video production, all those things, anybody can get that stuff now. And so now, you really have to deliver, on your message. What is the mission statement of your product, and long gone are the days of Amazon being full of just like a bunch of random, products and horrible pictures and videos. Now, everyone is doing video production. Everyone's doing these beautiful, pictures on their listing. So everything has to fit into the mission. And so one example, I sold a outdoor toys product line, and the whole mission statement for that was helping children develop a new love for the great outdoors. So in my family, we reduce as much technology as we can. And so we're constantly spending time outside. Just here in Texas, there's so much to do. And so there's no reason to be constantly playing video games. And so that was the mission for that brand, and everything down to the video production, the pictures, it was all to inspire someone. The moment they landed on my listing, I wanted them to really, look at that and say, I need to get outside with my kids and go do this. This toy looks like an absolute blast. And so that's what I would tell people from day one: focus on branding, and don't don't hesitate to, you know, go expensive on your pictures. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to spend, $600-700 for a listing. But, you're getting into, you spend it now or you spend it later. So you could spend, $250 on a listing now. And guess what? You could have 10 competitors pop up tomorrow with amazing photography. And then now you have to, compete with them and do it all over again. So just to not hesitate with just jumping all in with branding.
That's awesome. I'll share for those of you that are just contemplating that a sale is in your future. Spend the money, get a professional bookkeeper, get really good financials sorted out in QuickBooks or Xero. Make sure you switch, if you're selling physical products, make sure you are accrual based in your accounting. If you don't know what that means, Google it or message me. I'll explain it to you. Because in the world of M&A, your product listing page, like your beautiful professional pictures, the video, for us as an M&A advisor, as an intermediary, as your broker, that equivalency is your financials, the income statement and the balance sheet. That is the first thing that buyers look at. And if it looks hokey pokey or it's just a regular old spreadsheet you downloaded at a Seller Central, we still can get those businesses sold. I have done it. It is tremendously more difficult and you get less money. So if you want more money, get good financials, use a great bookkeeper and sort all that out from the beginning, or be willing to invest in going back in time and having those recast and updated. John, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate everything that you had to share. And I'm hoping for those of you that are watching that you are on the sales side, potentially, of an Amazon business, or on the buy side. I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to John for consultancy, because it never hurts to have somebody that's been through this experience, that has these hard-learned lessons on his side to be able to guide you around these potholes and these minefields, because they're out there everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, Nate.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe and tell me what you thought about it in the comments. Your comments encourage me to continue posting videos, and they give me ideas about what to post next. I read and reply to every single one. Also, if you own an online business and you're curious of how much it's worth, click the link below to get a free business valuation with a member of our team. Who knows? It may even be me you're talking to.